All
button.
right,
So we are
then we'll
actually
go.
you know. Oh shoot! It is your main man, Big Ive. I'm actually sitting here with the lovely DocRobyn. DocRobyn, how are you?
I'm good tonight, Ivan, despite our technical difficulties.
Oh, what technical difficulties? We're only 12 minutes behind. Don't tell nobody.
Really gives me stress.
But at least we're on, and that's the good thing about it because we own the network. So that's
Right,
a great thing. So first and
exactly.
foremost, who is Dr. Robin? Who is she? Because
Oh,
we met within the last month, and
mhm.
so far, me coming out hearing you speak, Doc, has been amazing. Nothing less than amazing. You have a witty way of telling your story that I can appreciate, and I find it not just entertaining but informative as well. Um, who's Doc Robin?
Where do you want me to start? Do you want me to start with where I am now or how I got here?
No, I want to hear how you got here. I think that if people had heard how you got there, where you're at right now, I think it would be totally amazing. It definitely will help someone out.
Yeah, so I look really intimidating on paper
Hmm.
because I have a doctoral degree, I've written a couple of books, I blog, I speak internationally and whatever, but I am actually really, really down to earth. And the reason I'm down to earth is because of the story of how I got here. So that's a
Okay.
great place to start. Um, I guess I have to start with the fact that I didn't go to college until I was 32.
Hmm.
I worked in the corporate world. I started out in banking, and then I got headhunted to work in technology. Back when you worked in technology, because you weren't scared of it, you could just
Right.
do it. But I knew like that was not my passion. It wasn't what I wanted to be when I grew up. I used to joke it was a job, and it got in the way of my social life. And then I had one event. I always was that person that people came to talk to. They shared their stories. They said who they were, what they needed. They asked advice. And I was working at OnStar, which is a division of General Motors, and I was sitting in my office on a conference call when a manager came in with one of his employees, and she was sobbing, like one of those cries where you can't breathe.
Yeah.
And the manager said to me, "Can you talk to her? Her boyfriend just held a gun to her head for 2 hours."
Wow.
And I was like, "I'm the technology manager." And he left her in my office. And I did talk to her, and I ended up going with her to her apartment. The first thing we did was hid the guns. I've never been so scared in my life. We grabbed
Mhm.
as much of her stuff as we could get together, and we moved her out. Like we just got her out of there. But that was a real watershed moment for me, the realization that I had this talent for working with people and I was kind of wasting it working in technology. And
Mhm.
that led to me selling my house that was almost paid for. I was 2 years short of having my house paid for at that point. I sold my second car and I started college at 32. And then I got an undergrad, a master's, and a doctorate in 6 years.
Dang. If
Yeah.
that's not motivation for your butt, I'm in 6 years.
Six and a half years. I started in January of 2004 and I graduated my doctorate in May of 2010.
So what did you get your undergrad in?
My undergrad is in psychology, and I studied motivational interviewing, which a lot of people don't know what that is. The best way to describe it is that motivational interviewing is the ability to help someone see the best path for them rather than forcing them to go down it. I compare it to having a conversation with someone that's a dance rather than a wrestling match.
Wow.
And
Wow.
yeah, that was big for me. I still use that technique when I work with my clients because if you invite someone by asking them questions about how is this working for you, what's good, what's bad, where do you want to go, rather than saying you're broken, fix it, here's how, you're going to get a much more let's work together kind of thing. Whereas if you try to force them, they get very defensive and are like, I'm fine, I don't need your help. So I was really fortunate to be able to work in a lab where they were doing motivational interviewing as an undergrad when I was working on my psychology degree.
How hard was it for you to get everything in 6 years?
So it was kind of an interesting thing. I think part of it was, I was an adult. I had really good time management skills, but I also, because I was an adult, I had the ability to go into professors' offices and I would walk in and I would shake their hand, which they aren't used to from students. And I had a very professional handshake because I had worked in banking. And I have a biology professor who had a class that it was like 500 students big, and I needed to take it. It was like part of my curriculum, but I hadn't taken the prerequisite yet. But the prerequisite wasn't going to be offered until like the following spring. And if I didn't take his class then, it was going to delay my graduation, because then I couldn't take his class until like a year later. So I walked into his office and I said, look, I have a 4.0 GPA here as an undergrad. I can do the work. Yes, I know I don't have the prerequisites, but I want permission to take your class out of order. And he was like, well, I don't know. I said, I guarantee you that I will pass your class with flying colors if you let me in. He was like, all right, well, it's your loss if you don't. And it's so funny because when he put up at the end of the year, he put up one of those bar graphs with all the grades so he could show the curve. Right. And the curve, you know, was, there were 1,000 points possible in the class. I think to get an A, you needed like, I don't know what number, 600 or however many it was. And so he had all these bars, you know, right around 600. And then way over on the very end, there was the one with like 989 points. That was mine. I wrote a blog about that good is good enough, because that was a complete waste of my time to get 989 points when I only needed like 600 to get an A.
I'm just fascinated. 6 years, you got your doctorate, master's, and your undergrad.
I was very focused.
Yeah, I see that. What inspiration, what words of advice would you give someone that's a older student, late, you know, going back to college late in the game, or thinking about going back to school?
I think the best thing you can do is be really good at time management and prioritizing. And I think, I mean, I train executives, I train business owners in time management, and the class I teach is called "There's No Such Thing as Not Enough Time." Right. And that's the truth. There's always time for the things that are important to you. And for me, school was important to me. And to the disregard of having a social life, of, you know, people would invite me to dinner and I'd be like, no, I got to study. I'm taking 27 credits this semester. I don't have time to have dinner with you. And I guess I was fortunate because I also had moved right before I went to school, because I had lived in North Carolina most of my adult life. I ended up going to undergrad out on Long Island. So not only was I an older student, but I didn't have a lot of friends out there who were like pulling on my time and that I had to say no to.
Gotcha.
Being able to prioritize, being able to say no, giving yourself permission to say no, and being comfortable with the kind of discontentment that creates for people when you push back on them.
Awesome. So bring me up to speed right now. Where is DocRobyn right now?
So right now, I own a company called Champion Performance Development. I do executive coaching, which sometimes bleeds into life coaching. I don't like to call it that because life coaching can be kind of soft, but it can bleed into that depending upon what people need. So I do coaching. I do corporate training, where I go into corporations and I train on things like time management, leadership, communication, conflict resolution. I have a talk which you heard called Success versus Likability, Why Women Have to Choose, which talks about why women have to kind of pick between being too feminine to be competent and too masculine to be likable, and the unconscious bias that is systematically eliminating female experts from the pool that gets promoted, and what we can do about it. I love that talk. I love talking about that. That's one of my big things right now, is that particular topic. I also have the Stop the Drama campaign, which goes with my first book, Stop the Drama, The Ultimate Guide to Female Teams. And with that, I go into high schools and colleges, and I speak primarily to female athletes, although not exclusively, also to sororities and female students in general, about why girls tend to be gossip, drama, backstabbing, catty behavior, that craziness, and how we fix it. Like, what's going on and how do we fix it?
Right.
That's the Stop the Drama campaign. And then I have recently gone public with the Happy to Listen movement, where I sit with a sign that says happy to listen, and anyone who wants to come up and talk to me about whatever they want to talk about comes up and says hi, and we chat. I did it on Saturday most recently, and a woman came up and was talking to me about her grandkids. I learned so much about her 3 grandchildren, and she just needed someone to talk to, you know? And
so that happy to listen. how do people, I would think people would be more reserved than anything. Did they just come out to you and just open up?
Yeah, so on Saturday I was sitting, and the first person to come up to me and talk to me was actually a girl that I would guess she's probably about 13, and she came up to me and she said, "What does your sign mean?" And so I got the opportunity to explain to a 13-year-old girl what I was doing, and she said, "Kind of like a psychologist?" And I said, "Yeah, exactly like a psychologist, except it's just, a chat." And her
Right.
brother was there, and I would guess he was probably about 9. And so he talked to me about what I was doing. And then the 4-year-old sister had to come up, and she was like, "Hi, you're pretty." And that was really, really cute, so it was fun. And then, yeah, people come up. Sometimes they just say, "Can I sit here? Do you mind?" Or they'll say, "You're really okay if I just talk to you?" And I'm, "Yeah." Or they'll say, "What are you doing?" And they think I'm weird, but yeah, they just come up and talk.
What made you come up with that? Because I think that's so, first of all, is it effective?
Is it effective? The people who talk to me love it. They always say the world needs more people like you. I love that you do it. There are a lot of people that I've talked to about it in the different groups that I'm in who do it. I know there's people in Paris right now who are doing it, and obviously they're talking a lot about the bombings and that kind of thing. One of the women shared in one of the groups I'm in that a gentleman that she guessed to be about 90 was talking to her about what's going on, and he said, rough translation, obviously, because they were speaking in French, but he said roughly, if you let them get into your head, they win. That's
Mm,
powerful stuff.
wow.
So I feel like, especially as we go into the holidays, the happy to listen thing is important for people, just to have a place to just chat and make that human connection. I call it, my tagline for it is putting the human back in the human race.
I think that is freaking brilliant. I love it.
How often do we have someone that really looks at us and sees us for the valuable and unique person that we are? And that's what I try to do with every single person who sits down to talk to me, is see them as valuable and unique and their story as special.
Right. So my question is this. I found out in business that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
Hmm.
Why do you do what you do, Doc?
I love people. I love their stories. I love talking to them. I'm definitely that person that if there's a room with 250 people in it, I'm like, ooh, 250 new friends I don't know yet. And
Right.
I get to go in and like meet them and say hi and find out who they are and find out their quirks, and I just love that. And if I, in my kind of unique and quirky way, can make a positive difference in somebody's life, why wouldn't I do that?
Right.
Professionally and just as a human walking around.
Oh my gosh. So where do you see this Happy to Listen campaign going? And at the end of the day, I mean, we're going into December.
Yeah.
It's November 18th. Where do you see it? I see great things happening, and especially here in Delaware. We're called I don't want to say branded, but we're called Murder Town USA.
And right. And I love
And
the hashtag I saw you use recently that said not Murder Town USA. I am all over that like white on rice. That is phenomenal. And I feel like, I would love to go out and just talk to people and gather their stories and, their happy stories, their life stories, to show that, no, it's not just about murder and craziness and mayhem and hateful people, but about real people who live in a space. Just like reality TV isn't ever reality, I'd like to be able to change the conversation on that reality TV program.
right, right. So let me backtrack for a minute. So you speak to high school excuse me, not high school, but athletes.
And this, yes, I do. I do a lot of like mental toughness work. I teach them grit. I do work. I am a sports psychologist. My doctoral degree had a concentration in sport and performance. So I am a sports psychologist, and I work
Wow.
with athletes at that level. Yeah.
So you just all around the board amazing. Hashtag amazing.
But like I said, I look amazing on paper, but I'm really, really, really down to earth. I grew up super poor. I have a life story that's pretty unique and has some traumatic moments in it. And I think that gives me the ability to be really empathetic with people and listen to their stories in a way that someone who hasn't experienced hardship can't do it.
Oh man, that's awesome. You know, I came out to see you talk at the Newcastle County Women's Expo, and you totally brought the house down. You know, I thought it was an injustice that you went first, you know, but.
Well, I like to think they put me first because I had the most, interesting talk, and I was going to draw the crowd in to be there on time. That's the story I get to make up.
And not to take anything away from the other women. The other women
of course not.
were great as well. And I'm not taking anything away from them. I just think that I know that your message, and even as a man, it resonated with me. You know, it was that, like, wow, it was refreshing, so to speak. It was something that I could relate to, even though I wasn't a woman, even though, it was a women's expo.
Well, and so, when I go into corporations and I give that talk, the success versus likability talk, I tell men, if you care about the fact that your top leadership is so heavily dominated by men, and you're interested in understanding why you're not getting, the females into your leadership, this is one brick in that wall that's creating a problem. And if you can loosen this one brick to help people kind of understand the unconscious bias of success versus likability, it'll make other bricks easier to move. I mean, when you have a wall, if you can get one out, it's like trying to get the first piece of pie out. Once you get the first one out, it's so much easier to get the rest of them out.
Right about that. Success versus likability. Are you doing a podcast, or is that on DVD anywhere? Because I think people need to hear that, man.
So I'm really struggling with, do I give it away? It is my content. Do I give it away or do I try to sell it? And so kind of where I'm trying to create, kind of straddle that fence, and I'm working really hard on trying to create, take the whole thing I did, the talk that I did on Tuesday. I have a video of it. The challenge I'm having is getting a 40-minute video online. So I have my web developer guy working on it, and I'm going to put it up for a couple of days at least for free, and just tell people, here's the link if you want to watch it, kind of now or never, and then I'll put it into my archives as part of my paid, kind of thing people can buy or talks I can give and that kind of thing. So I am going to offer it. I just have to figure out how to get a 40-minute video online in a way that I can put it up and then take it down. And that's the challenge we're having right now.
Understood. So where are you speaking next?
So my next open to the public talk is at the Inspiring Women in STEM conference, which is happening in New Jersey, up in Bridgewater on December 4th. Had to think about that. On December 4th, and I'll be giving my talk titled 7 Things That Cause Disagreements to Escalate, 10 Things You Can Do to Stop It. And
give me three things that causes that.
3 things that cause disagreements to escalate. All right.
Yeah.
Which 3 do I want to give you? So one thing is that we are hardwired to escalate disagreement. Evolutionarily, we are hardwired to escalate disagreement. And that's because your brain can't tell the difference between an emotional threat, a psychological threat, and a physical threat. Getting a nasty email feels exactly the same to your brain as being chased by a lion.
Wow.
Yeah, your brain can't tell the difference. And so you go directly into that fight or flight response.
Okay.
And so you can't, when you get a nasty email, from your boss, from a client, from a vendor, whoever it's from, and you go into that fight or flight, your caveman brain and your emotional brain are all going, ah! And they flood your logical brain with neurotransmitters. And so if you've ever been in a situation where one of 2 things happens, you either think of the perfect thing to say 20 minutes after the argument's over, or you say something you immediately regret. That happens when your emotional brain is overloading your logical brain with neurochemicals. And that is your fight or flight response taking over. And so I talk about why that happens, and then how to catch it, how to notice it, how to catch it, because you basically have a nanosecond to catch it before all bets are off.
Right.
So I talk about that.
That's what I love about what you're saying is not, it's science.
And I guess for me, yes, I'm a geek. You know, I love this stuff. I love reading about it. I love talking about it. Yes, I have a doctoral degree. Yes, I can read the science, but I can explain it in a way that makes sense to the average person because I'm really just an average person.
Right, right. Yeah, I just love the science part about it and how you make it your own. You know what I mean? You make it, you give it to people, and they can. It's not, Ennis or anything that's so not far fetched, but hard to read. You just bring it
No.
to the people like, yo, this is what it is. 2 + 2 is 4.
Right,
3 + 2 is
exactly.
5.
And
If you keep doing
I
this,
guess
this is
the sad part, if there's a sad part to it, is when I talk to people, and because I make it so simple, people leave and say, "Oh, well, you're just teaching common sense." I'm like, well, if common sense was common, I wouldn't have a job then.
I got you. I got you. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. So you're in New Jersey, and where else are you?
So my next speaking event is my next public speaking event is in New Jersey.
Hmm.
I do a lot of speaking kind of between the DC, New York City corridor. I
Okay.
do a lot of international and national travel. I've tried to cut that back some because, as you know, because you've met him, I have an absolutely fabulous husband, and I love being able to
We gotta give
sleep.
him a drum roll. We gotta give him a drum roll,
I
man.
know, he's so good. He's such a good
He
guy.
got he has her smiling through Google Hangout. Look at that. Look at the glow. Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
so I do try. I mean, unless there's an opportunity where I get to bring my assistant with me, which I do get speaking requests where they say, sure, we'll pay for your assistant to come. And then he
Oh,
goes with me and he sells books and runs my video camera and takes care of all that background stuff that he's so very good at. And we go
mhm.
together. And fortunately, he owns his own business as well. So he has the opportunity to be able to do that with me.
Awesome. Awesome. So how is it hard to juggle everything you're doing and being married?
No.
Because I mean, you
Well, because we're fortunate. A, we have a really good relationship. So our communication is really good. B, we're
mhm.
both self-employed, which means we both kind of get to run our own schedules. We can
Okay.
say at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I can stick my head in his office downstairs and say, hey, do you have any more client appointments tonight or this afternoon? And the weather's nice. Let's go for a bike ride. We can work when it's dark, you know?
Yeah.
And so that really helps. And also, he is one of the most patient human beings you will ever meet. He's super confident in who he is, so he's okay with me being the outgoing, vivacious human being that I am, and he's not threatened by that. And I think
Right.
that's a huge plus for us, is that he's just confident enough in his skin that he's not possessive, he's not judgmental, he's not worried about stuff. And we kind of had this really funny agreement in our relationship where
Right.
I defend our relationship against men who hit on me, and he defends our relationship against women who hit on him if he notices.
He's not even worried about it. He's worried about his
He
baby
just
without
doesn't notice it. It goes right over his head. He's like, oh wait, I think what? Oh, he's so cute.
That's awesome. So, what advice would you give a woman that's trying to, I guess, start her own business, but still have to juggle being married in a relationship?
Well, so I think having a really good partner and having a partner who supports you and understands you is a really big deal. And I know that because prior to the man that I'm currently married to, I was married before to a man who was not supportive and who was jealous and who was possessive. And it was ugly and it was hard. And he was, I remember him saying to me when I was working on my first book, who gave you permission to write a book? And I was like,
Wow, did he?
what? Yeah, we had a ridiculous fight about it on the beach on St. John. Isn't that a crazy place to have a fight like that? But yeah, we had a huge fight on a beach on St. John about me writing a book and that he hadn't given me permission to do so.
Stop
So
it. Stop
yeah,
it.
yeah, that's what he said. So I would definitely say my first piece of advice is get your relationship in a space where your partner is supportive and is part of your goal and is on board with your goal. And if he's not, then you kind of need to look at that and say, is this the right goal for us? And
Right.
even, is he the right partner for me? If this is my goal, if this is what I want to do, if this is who I am and what I want to be, you know? And I think
Yeah.
that that's a really tough conversation. And I work with clients where I do a project called the Foresting Project.
Okay.
I call it that because so many times we're going through our life at 90 miles an hour that it's like driving through a forest and you don't notice the trees and the shrubs and the plants and just the nuances of the forest because you're just zooming through it. And
Right.
so I help my clients look at each of the trees in their life. And there's a whole process we go through. We write down, you know, their personal life, their work life, their social life, their church life, whatever pieces, and we break it down. And I think that that's a really important thing to do because if you're just zooming through the forest and you suddenly decide, oh, I'm going to start a business, and you plant this new tree in your forest that is a business, that tree multiplies into like this huge thing. And if you haven't kind of figured out what your forest looks like, it can get really messy really quick.
Yeah, you get ugly real quick.
Mm-hmm. It can be. And, you know, and there are stresses that come with being an entrepreneur. You know, there are days where I'm like, oh, I can't do this. I'm going to go bankrupt. This is crazy. And there are other
Right.
days where I'm like, yes, I rule the world. And
Yeah.
and those highs and lows, you need a partner that can be there for you and kind of help you level that out and be, when you're really low, they can say, you know what, it's okay, we'll figure it out. And when you're really high, they can celebrate with you and that they're there, you know, that's really important.
Awesome.
But yeah,
Awesome.
I think that's a big deal.
Let me see. I had someone ask me the other day. I was talking about you, of course, and you know how amazing you are with women. Um, and it actually reminded me of when you were talking at the Newcastle County conference about women in the workforce that have no voice.
Oh yeah. It frustrates me because, you know, it's not that they don't want a voice, and it's not that they don't realize they need to have a voice. It's that they don't know how, and that we tell women to lean in, and then they do, and we punish them, and it just frustrates me.
Yeah. So what would you do? What would you say? What advice would you give a woman that's, they're getting paid 75 cents less? They're at the boardroom and they're scared to say something because the workforce is predominantly all men.
Mhm. And they get that success versus likability issue.
Yeah. I'll just sit here and be a pretty face in a seat and not speak up.
I don't think there's a woman out there who intentionally decides I'm going to be a pretty face in a seat. I don't think that that's a conscious decision.
Okay.
And a lot of the clients that I work with, you know, that come to me and say, here's the issue, can you help me? The first thing I do is kind of help them figure out what is their value, what is their voice, what is it they want to accomplish, and why. Because if you don't know what you're trying to accomplish, you know, you're stabbing around in the dark.
Yeah.
So that's the first place to start, is kind of know your mission. Who are you? And then be true to yourself about that, because that's an important place to start, of course. And this is something that's really, really hard, and I struggle with it even every single time I do it.
Okay.
You have to be willing to deal with the fallout, you know, and I'll explain what that means. Saying no is one of the toughest things in the world for a woman to do. And even for men, but more for women. And it's because when someone says no to us, we judge them negatively. We say things like, oh, she's not a team player. Oh, she's not in the right headspace for this. You know, whatever we make up about someone saying no to us. And when we do that, our subconscious hears us loud and clear. And then when we have to say no, our unconscious says, ooh, you shouldn't do that. You maybe shouldn't say no. They're not going to like you. They're going to think you're not a team player. They're going to think you're not right in the right headspace. You should just do it. And so other people get to prioritize the stuff we have on our plate. And so when I coach women around this issue, I talk to them about kind of dealing with that internally so that you can accept no from other people, and then being ready to deal with the pushback that you get when you say, no, that is not my responsibility. I will not be doing that. Or when you stand up and say, I don't think that's a good idea, and here's why. and being really ready to own that and deal with the pushback you're going to get and stand in it. And I guess I need to add here as a caveat, I know that I look super, super confident, and people say to me, wow, you've really got it together. This is a learned behavior for me.
Right.
I have a business card from a counselor that I saw in my 30s that says, I will not downplay my needs. She wrote it down and gave it to me. And I carried that in my daytimer when we carried daytimers for 15 years. I could get it. It's right over there on the bookshelf. I could go and get it and show it to you right now, because
Wow.
I used to be that person that my needs aren't important. My thoughts aren't important. My emotions aren't important. And I learned they are, and I need to own them, and I need to be responsible for them. And that's what I teach other women as well.
I think that is simply amazing. You can see the love, the passion that you have, the strength you have, and you're willing to take a part of that out of your life and give it to another woman. In business, when I was in college, my professor, my business law professor, he said, don't ever worry about the money. Worry about, are you adding value to someone's life?
Yep.
And the only way that you can add value is to take something from yourself and give it to people without asking for anything in return.
And I have a huge heart, and I work with men as well, because I was a former competitive athlete, and I have that really competitive spirit and whatever. I can absolutely work with men. I don't want people to think, oh, she only works with women. That is not true. I can stand in a conference room full of men and own my space just as well.
Own your space.
As long as they're willing to deal. Some men are very intimidated by me, and they're like, oh, no, I can't work with you. You scare me. Okay.
Where they think that you're really timid and you're not going to say anything. You're just going to be like, yeah, okay. They got another thing coming up.
Wouldn't I be a horrible coach if I was a yes man? I mean, if you want to hire a yes man, you can find those. I am not it.
Right. I get it. I think you're amazing, Doc. Doc, look, tell everybody where they can find you, where they can get your books, all that good stuff, where they can book you, because,
book me to speak, book me to train, book me as a coach.
Right.
So a couple of different places they can learn about me. There's my website, which is DocRobyn, and I will spell that. It's DocRobynOdegaard.com. That's my business site, and it's got my blog, it's got videos of me, you can get my books there as well as on Amazon. Like, that website is loaded with information. And you can email me from the website. My phone number's on there, you can call me. And I encourage people, if you are interested in the work that I do in any way, call me, let's have a conversation. Email me, let's have a conversation. Don't think, oh, she's over my head, she's too educated, she's too whatever. You don't know that unless you ask. And, I'm a nice person. I don't bite people in public, usually. If people are interested in the Stop the Drama campaign, they can go to stopthedramanow.com. And there's, some information there, some videos and that kind of thing there about the Stop the Drama campaign. You can also get there from my main website. There's a link on the main page down on the bottom right. And then the Happy to Listen movement is happytolisten.com, and that's the number 2 in the middle, happytolisten.com. There's a little bit of my story there, and then there's a link over to the GoFundMe page where there's a video with me talking about, why I'm doing it and what I do and that kind of thing. I try to update it consistently. I don't always succeed, because if I'm out listening to people, I'm not sitting in front of my computer typing.
Right.
I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter at DocRobyn. Again, with the Y, don't forget the Y, at DocRobyn. And then, LinkedIn. So all the main kind of social media platforms you'd expect, you can search and find me.
You're there. You're everywhere.
I'm there. And I try really hard to be active and share useful information. And if I find articles that I think are useful, or, memes that are interesting, I share them. And especially on Facebook, I share some of my personal story. I'll share pictures of my partner, Russ, my husband, Russ, and I, and things I'm doing, frustrations I have, like the fact that I edited my video and then my computer crashed and I had to start over, and that was annoying. So
now, Doc, before we roll out of here, right? first of all, I want to say thank you for your time. We really appreciate you.
Absolutely.
But you have to you have to say what you said at the conference. Like, I am.
Oh, I'm awesome because that's how I roll.
I love it. I love it.
I get to say that, and it's okay, and people don't get to judge me on that. I get to decide that I'm awesome, and that gives them permission to be awesome.
Yo, one more time, Doc.
I'm awesome because that's how I roll.
All right, this is Ivan from DETV. Be sure you check us out at detvch.com. Me and DocRobyn are actually working on a lot of good things so you could be a part and so you can share, spread the love. And what is it, Doc? Bringing the human back to humanity?
Bringing the human back to the human race.
The human into the human race. So stay tuned. Be sure to follow DocRobyn on her site. Follow us on detvch.com. And we got plenty more things for you to take advantage of to change your life. All right. This is us, 202. We salute you. All right, Doc. Thanks a lot, Doc.
Have a good night.
You too.
Bye.